Hi, and welcome back to Brief Recaps. On a rainy night, a mysterious black notebook randomly fell from the sky. The next thing we see is numerous criminals dropping dead on live television, specifically 153, all from heart attacks. As a news reporter comments on the recent events, we see a prison guard going back and forth between cells as multiple prisoners in jail begin collapsing while clutching their chests. Some believe it's an act of God sending sinners to hell, and soon enough threads all over the internet dedicated to praising this God begin popping off. People are calling him Kira, their savior, and praising him for eliminating evil. Users online beg him to kill more criminals and make this world a better place, while some people think that he's nothing but a murderer. On the news, people are given the opportunity to voice their opinions on Kira. One guy doubts his existence while another believes in it entirely. However, just then the program is interrupted by an emergency live broadcast. The man on the TV reveals that a person robbing a daycare center in Shinjuku has been identified, and just then, we see a young man retrieve a black notebook from his bag. He discreetly writes the man's name down, while the reporter reveals that 3 employees have been killed and 5 hostages remain. However, just then, the hostages begin exiting the building, and it is revealed that the suspect is dead as he suddenly collapsed, another mysterious death. The next day, our main protagonist, Light Yagami, is playing some great basketball at school with his friends, impressing his love interest Shiori. Light scored the most, so he wins the bet and earns some money, but hands everyone some back before heading to the cafeteria with Shiori. In a flashback, we see that Light hacked into the police database and found out criminals weren't receiving adequate punishment, confirming his doubts in the justice system as cases upon cases were either dropped or unsolved. One man in particular caught his eye, a gangster named Takuo, and so Light decided to visit the bar where he was known to hang out. While sitting at the bar, Light overheard the man bragging about his crimes to his friends, until one of them noticed Light watching them. He got up to intimidate him, and the leader then got in his face too, taunting and threatening him. Light abruptly left after that, and feeling completely hopeless, he threw his law book away. It was then he noticed a black notebook mysteriously lying on the ground, and fatefully, he goes to pick it up. Finally, back at home, a curious Light opens it up and finds some strange rules written on the first pages. The first one being, whoever's name is written on this notebook will die. He laughs as it's all probably some silly joke, but just then he hears about a criminal on the news who brutally attacked a student, so he decides to write the man's name down anyway before going to bed. The following day, Light wakes up and discovers that the criminal's name he wrote down is dead. He looks at the newspaper in disbelief, thinking that it must be a coincidence. So to check that the notebook works for sure, he finds Takuo again and writes his name down. If a cause of death is not specified within 40 seconds of the person's name being written down, he or she will simply die of a heart attack. Light waits in what is a very intense moment, and surely enough, Takuo falls to the ground clutching his chest. Light can't believe his own eyes and gets scared, so he goes to place the notebook back where he found it, but at that moment he hears a deep, echoey voice coming from above. He looks up to see a giant winged figure with glowing eyes, terrifying him, but then eerily laughs, realizing that it's a god of death, and asks if he's here to take his soul. The god of death laughs, explaining that he dropped the notebook into the human world, so now it belongs to Light. He further explains that only those who have touched the death note can see him, and finally introduces himself as Ryuk. Meanwhile, detectives investigate the suspicious string of sudden deaths. One suggests they contact Ministry of Health as it could be a virus. However, the chief that is convinced this is a massacre. The chief is then informed that the ICPO believe the culprit is in Japan, as the first death occurred here, according to L, the most famous detective in the world. Chief says he recognizes that name, and he is then told that L has cracked many unsolved cases all over the world, so he is their last chance. Chief is then introduced to a man named Watari, as they can only contact L through him. Watari opens a laptop which L uses to address everyone, disguising his voice with AI. He reveals that these recent murders are most likely caused by a single maniacal genius, as a natural occurrence in deaths would show a gentle slope. However, in this case, victims are dying in a very unnatural pattern. We then discover that the chief is actually Light's father, as we hear his superior say, "I will appoint Yagami as leader of the investigation team." Meanwhile, Light is having a good old time in his room with Ryuk, seeing how many people are in support of Kira. Ryuk is fascinated by Light as he has never seen someone use a death note in this way before. Most humans only use it once and get scared after realizing it's real, but not Light. The future is now in his hands, and the death note will help him create a new world where criminals tremble in fear and the good rejoice. A few moments later, Light gets a notification on his phone regarding some news about Kira, so he turns on his television to see an emergency live broadcast by the International Criminal Police Organization. The man on the television reveals himself as Lind L. Taylor, famously known as L, and goes on to speak about Kira's crimes in a provocative manner. Moreover, he says that this Kira has an extraordinary ego and is a vile and immature criminal. As L planned, Light takes the bait and writes Lind L. Taylor's name in the notebook, proclaiming how he's won before L was even able to get started. And 40 seconds later, Lind L. Taylor dies from a heart attack. Light assumes victory. However, just then the screen changes and a voice disguised in AI begins addressing Kira. He starts off by saying that he's impressed and that he never would have believed someone could kill without lifting a finger if he hadn't just witnessed it himself. Furthermore, he reveals that the man he just killed was actually an inmate on death row scheduled to die today, but the real L is very much alive. He tells Kira to try and kill him if he dares, but he can't, so L deduces right there and then that Kira must need a person's name and face to kill. Also, it turns out the live broadcast is not being aired worldwide as they made Light think, but was restricted to the Tokyo region of Japan. So now they know where he is, and L proclaims that it is just a matter of time before he will be able to sentence him to death. L ends the broadcast calling Kira evil and titling himself as Justice, angering Light as he believes that he is real justice and anyone that defies what he stands for are the truly evil ones. Light declares himself God of the New World and Savior of the weak, to which Ryuk is very much entertained and is totally in for the ride. Meanwhile, Interpol is conferring with L, who carried out an analysis of the dates and times of the murders, which coincide with the free time in a student's schedule, and as Kira has a childish sense of justice, it's even more likely he's a student. One night while having dinner with his family, Light starts a conversation with his father about the investigation of Kira's case. He says that he wants to join the team. After all, he once helped the police solve numerous crimes in the past. However, his father is against the idea and does not allow his son to get involved as Kira is too dangerous, a devil that kills ruthlessly. From then on, Light is constantly on the alert. He checks the police database and sees that they suspect Kira is a student. 3 days go by and the police note how the pattern in Kira's killings have changed, as if to contradict their theory of him being a student. On the other hand, Light is walking with Ryuk and rejoices over the crime rate dropping thanks to Kira. However, a few moments later, he realizes that he's being followed as Ryuk is acting strange. Light asks why he never told him, to which Ryuk says it's because he's not on his side, nor L's either. The spy follows Light all the way home, and he can't believe the police are onto him already. In his bedroom, Ryuk reveals to Light that he can see any human's name and lifespan, but to obtain the eyes of a Shinigami, he would need something in return, half of Light's remaining lifespan. Light instantly refuses as he values his life too much, and then comes up with a plan to deal with the spy who was following him. The following days, Light tests out a rule in the notebook by killing numerous criminals in prison, as he wants to see how far he can control his victims before they die. L suspects that Kira is trying to test something with these bizarre recent deaths, so he tells the police to not say a word to the press. However, being that the culprit is the chief's son, Light has no problem finding all the information he needs on the database. The next day, he gets on a bus with Shiori to go on a date, knowing that the spy will be following him. The bus stops to pick up a suspicious-looking passenger, who immediately starts a hijacking. Light then shows a note to Shiori, saying that he will neutralize the hijacker, but make sure the spy sitting behind him will see it too, prompting him to get involved as he can't let a teenager put himself in danger. Light tells him to prove he's not an accomplice, and just as planned, he successfully manipulates the spy into showing him his ID, revealing that he's an FBI agent named Rei Iwamatsu. Then, Light seemingly drops the note by accident on the floor, attracting the attention of the hijacker, who quickly approaches and picks it up. However, this is actually a piece of paper from the Death Note, so after touching it, he notices Ryuk looming in the back and becomes terrified. The man begins to shoot at the monster, but bullets cannot harm a god of death. In a panic, the criminal wants to escape from danger and makes the driver stop the bus. However, after rushing out of the door, the hijacker is hit by a car and dies on the spot. Light's plan worked perfectly as the criminal dies exactly as he wrote in the notebook. Rei is a little cautious since he has revealed his identity, but his suspicions haunt him as all Kira needs is a name and face to kill. His fiancée, Naomi Misura, who was previously an agent that worked under L, begs Rei to be extra careful as they're planning their wedding, which is coming up soon. Meanwhile, Light is afraid that he will be discovered if he kills the FBI agent tailing him, but decides that he needs to eliminate all the FBI agents that were sent to Japan. Even the god of death Ryuk reminds Light that these are not criminals, but he doesn't care. The following day, Ray takes the subway, and Naomi decided to follow him as he was acting strange earlier. Ray enters the train carriage and retrieves an envelope sitting on the shelf. After opening it, he takes out a walkie-talkie, and on the other end is Kira, who proves himself by killing the person next to Ray. As Kira threatens the lives of all the passengers, Ray agrees to follow his every instruction. He blackmails Ray into giving up every single FBI agent that came to Japan, making him write their names down on the sheets of paper prepared for him. After, Ray puts them back in the envelope and gets off at the next station as instructed. However, just after stepping onto the platform, he collapses from a heart attack, and Naomi witnesses her beloved fiancé drop to the floor. In his final moments, Ray looks into the train and sees Light looking back at him. All the while, Naomi sobs beside her fiancé's body. We then see all the FBI agents die of heart attacks one after the other. As it turns out, the piece of paper that Ray wrote the agents' names on was actually a page from the death note. Chief Yagami holds a meeting regarding the recent FBI agents' deaths and gives everyone the opportunity to drop out of the investigation because it is clear that Kira will eliminate anyone trying to catch him. However, those who are not afraid to risk everything can stay. Pretty much everyone in the room decides to drop out of the Kira case, leaving just 6 detectives and L. However, the group begin to express their dissatisfaction with L as he gets to hide his identity while they are out in the open. Plus, they don't fully trust him yet, as they've never even met in person. In agreement, L gives the order to Watari, who says that he will bring them to him. Soon after, the investigators arrive at the hotel room where Watari leads them. They notice the tables are piled with candy and ice cream. However, just then, they are greeted by a thin, barefoot kid with thick, unkempt hair and pale skin. He introduces himself as L, although his appearance surprises the detectives, who all give their names back. L then shoots at them with his finger guns and says, "If I were Kira, you'd all be dead by now," advising them not to give out their real names so freely. They immediately get down to business, and L explains that Kira could have only gotten the FBI agents' names from one of the agents themselves, meaning Kira must be one of those whom they were assigned to watch. Meanwhile, Naomi conducts her own investigation to find her fiancé's killer, asking the driver about the passengers on his bus that day. After intensely watching the tape of Ray's death, L narrows down the circle of suspects significantly and reveals them by photograph to the rest of the group. To the chief's shock, one of the suspects is his own son, Light. The detectives immediately take offense. However, the chief says that they must be thorough and agrees to have bugs and cameras installed in his house. On the other hand, Naomi manages to track down Shiori. She tells her about her fiancé and asks if she recognizes him in a photo, to which Shiori says that she does because he was following Light. Meanwhile, Light already knows from the police report that his house will be under surveillance for the next 7 days, so he decides to write criminals' names in advance to divert suspicion from himself, just in case he is hospitalized or arrested. We then see a bubbly girl doing a TV show named Misa Armane after she is interviewed and reveals that she is a Kira fanatic. Not only that, but he saved her once. However, just then, Misa's manager comes along and scolds her because he told her not to comment on Kira. Meanwhile, Shiori brings Naomi to see Light as she requested. Naomi introduces herself with a fake name and hints that she knows he is Kira. Light says he will sue her for such slander, so he's writing down her words, but actually writes the name she gave him on a ripped piece of his death note. He then walks away assuming it worked. However, Naomi says to Light that he can't kill her as she's given him a false name. Naomi promises to hunt Kira down and won't stop till she puts him behind bars. When Light returns home, he notices that someone has been in his room, which means the bugs and cameras have already been set up. Ryuk tries talking to him and begs for a juicy apple, but of course gets no answer as Light knows he's being surveilled. He then takes a portable transmitter and leaves the house to buy some chips, and on the way, he explains to Ryuk why he can't talk to him in his room. Light asks Ryuk to find all the cameras so he can find a blind spot, and in return, he will give Ryuk all the apples he wants after they're removed. Meanwhile, L watches Light's every move with the rest of the team. It's day 3 of surveilling Light, and Watari confirms the deaths of 5 criminals, which relieves the chief as Light hasn't done anything suspicious. However, L reminds him that Kira can manipulate time, so this proves nothing. On day 7, Light is having dinner with his family, although his sister, Sayu, complains about their father who hasn't been home for several days. After dinner, Light leaves the table and takes a packet of chips with him for a late-night snack. Meanwhile, L and the task force watch closely as Light studies. Just then, the news reports that a criminal has been taken into custody, but not even a minute later, the scene changes to a live reporter revealing that the criminal has just died. This stuns L as Light wasn't even watching the news, so it's impossible he would know about the criminal. Therefore, he can't be accused of the new murder as he didn't do anything suspicious, so L agrees to remove surveillance from the household. However, we see that Light managed to deceive the detectives, hiding a portable TV in his bag of chips and using a page from the death note. The following day, L receives a phone call from Naomi, who tells him that she will prove Light yagami as Kira by risking her own life. Light then gets a call from Shiori, asking him to meet her at the art gallery. Light notes she sounds strange and suspects something is wrong. Turns out Shiori is not alone, and Naomi has taken her hostage, holding her at gunpoint. L connects to the cameras at the art gallery, and eventually Light appears in the lobby. L says that he knew Light is Kira, angering the chief who thought his son was cleared as a suspect. Light finds Shiori with Naomi, who threatens to kill her if Light does not confess. Light denies that he is Kira and begs her to release Shiori. Naomi wants him to experience the pain of losing a loved one like she did, and even gives Light her real name as if she died right now it would prove Light to be Kira. Light slowly reaches for his mighty pen. However, just then, the howl of police sirens is heard. Shiori takes advantage of this moment and escapes from Naomi's grasp, prompting Naomi to raise her gun and shoot. Shiori falls to the ground with a fatal wound, and realizing what she has just done, Naomi panics and deletes herself when the police arrive. As it turns out, this was all Light's plan as he wrote everything down in advance. He remembered Naomi at the metro station where Ray died, but her miscalculation was telling Light that she was Ray's fiancée when they first met, because from that information, he was able to get her name from the church. Eventually, Light's father arrives at the gallery and finds him fake grieving on the steps. He tells Light that he will send a car to take him home before leaving him alone. Ryuk is amazed that Light allowed his girlfriend to be killed. He sacrificed Shiori and wrote the script for her death along with Naomi's. Ryuk calls Light a devil in disguise, saying that he's far worse than a god of death, as Shiori truly loved him. Now Light must pull off the last part of his plan, which is to kill L. So to get closer to him, he asks his father to allow him to join the Kira task force, using the perfect excuse that he wants to avenge Shiori. We then see Misa Amane being followed by a man with a knife, but just when he's about to use it, he suffers a heart attack, and Death Note falls from the sky, landing next to him. Meanwhile, Light asks his father if he can join the investigation, but before he can answer, consent is given by L himself, who suddenly appears in the gallery. The two geniuses have an epic stare-off, and this brings the movie to an end. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and comment your thoughts and theories down below. Also consider hitting that notification bell so you never miss out on my recaps. Until next time, take care.